Hello everyone, Matt from Model Minute and welcome back to the workbench for another unboxing. This time it is a limited edition Supermarine Spitfire Mk.V from the Blackpool Illuminations. Join me as I take a look inside this limited edition kit and see what we've got. So, full disclosure, this product was sent to me free of charge for the purpose of review from Airfix and Blackpool Illuminations. However, all opinions do remain my own. So starting off on the front then, we've got this image of the aircraft as displayed at the Blackpool Illuminations. If you're not familiar with the Blackpool Illuminations, every year they have different sort of light shows and stands and things all along the seafront where you can go and visit and see these wondrous works of art. And this year Airfix have created a Spitfire themed roundabout. And the aircraft we've got here is featured on that roundabout. In comparison to other kits that we have from Airfix, this just features the paint scheme artwork on the front, and it clearly states down here that it is limited edition. The only place you can get this is in the Blackpool Illuminations webshop, and I'll put a link down below. Alternatively, if you go to Blackpool, you can probably find their shop there. So, this kit then is the Spitfire Mk.V starter set, not to be confused with the other version of the Spitfire Mk.V, which is a completely different tooling. So this particular Spitfire then was funded by the people of Blackpool in the Second World War to pay for this particular aircraft to help defend the nation. So the item code is A73101. The length is 131 millimeters, the wingspan is 157, and there are 26 parts. So it's the starter set, it should be fairly simple to build. Moving on to the right-hand side, we do have one flying hour, which is a token. If you cut that out and keep it, you can use it against more kits in the Airfix range, as long as you are a member of the club. Alternatively, send it to Models for Heroes, and you can help support charity that way. Down here, this is a skill level 1, so this is one of the easiest kits in the range, and it is designed specifically to be a starter set. On the thin edges, we've got the same information that was on the front, along with the images of the paint and glues, and same on that side. The other edge, we have a Cartograph logo down here, so decals made by Cartograph. Cartograph are some of the best decal manufacturers out there, and the transfer should be fantastic inside. Over here, it tells us that it was made in India and the UK, so it's a bit of a combination of different places. And we have tooling information. It's always great when a company puts the tooling information on the box, so you know what you're getting before you buy the product. So the tooling and design dates from 2020, which was the year this tooling was originally made, and I have built the original starter set version of this kit, and it was pretty good. Decal scheme and pack, obviously this year 2023, so this is a re-release but with a different paint scheme for the Blackpool Illuminations. On the back then, we've got our painting and decal placement instructions printed in full colour. It's a very typical Battle of Britain kind of colouring on here. So we've got dark earth, dark green, matte black, and a beige green or a sky type S kind of colour. And you can see that we've got all of our transfers on here as well. And these paints should be included in the set. So let's get the box open and see what we've got inside. So starting off in this little bag, we have our included glue and paint. So this is all Humbrol products. And we have our number 30 dark green, number 29 dark earth, number 90 sky, and number 33, which is black, plus also the poly cement. I'm just going to do a quick look at them to see if they're usable. That's fine. That's good to go. The brown is still wet, so we're good on that front. The green is very wet, and it's darker than the green that was on the original set that I had, so that's good. The sky colour, that's wet as well. That's good. And the number 33 matte black is also in a usable condition. So that's fantastic. 4 out of 4. We have a paintbrush. This is a size number 2. Not the finest of brushes, but it should be enough if this was your first starter set, your first model kit in general, to paint the kit. So that's that. Let's look at... oh, loads of stuff in here. So there's our transfers. Let's put them to one side. So Airfix starter sets come with this generic hints and tips sheet. It is specifically designed, as you can see, for the Spitfire in the box that we've got here. However, this will be found in the other sets as well. So if you buy a car, if you buy a tank, for example, you'll still have this same information. It won't be specific to a tank or a car. It'll just be the Spitfire again. But the information remains the same. And it's really good to see this because it helps a beginner with the information that they might not necessarily know. So washing the parts first to remove any mold release, identifying the correct parts, cutting them from the sprue, cleaning up with a file, drilling holes if required, using tweezers, how to use the glue, holding your parts together, painting small parts on the frames, and how to apply transfers. That is a very helpful hints and tip sheet, which is very nicely laid out. We will look at the transfers because I've got them here, and not many. As it's a starter set, it's to be expected that there won't be that many in the kit. So we have our registration codes on the side, along with our serial numbers, roundels, a band for the fuselage, and we've got the name of the plane down here and some tail flashes as well. So for a beginner set, not too many to do. Printing wise, they look very good. Cartograph do make some of the best transfers in the world, in my opinion, and these are no exception. The registration, which is how central the different elements are, so the red dots are bang on in the center of the roundels, and there doesn't seem to be any color bleed, and the color opacity is good as well. So yeah, no issues I expect with this set of transfers. Let's put that to one side and take a look at the instructions. Oh wow, big advert in the middle, not seen that before. So the rest of the sheet is the normal format from Airfix, but naturally they've gone a little bit more specific with the information here regarding the Blackpool Illuminations. So it says here that we can get 10% off all orders with this code here. So if you want to go online and get 10% off, you know, feel free. I haven't told you to do that, but there it is. And then we've got some information about Blackpool Illuminations down here. So if you want to read the factual information about the Spitfire, pause and take a look. And then the same again with the information regarding Blackpool Illuminations. I'll move my thumb so you can see it. A little bit of information down the bottom here about preparing the parts for painting. And then we turn over the page. We have some more information about what we should do before we get started. And then we have a sprue map. A sprue map is super handy because it helps to tell us where the different parts are on the frames. And it's always a nice addition. And then moving on to the instructions, these should be the exact same as the ones in the normal starter set Spitfire. So we start off by gluing our fuselage halves together, and you can see that it's indicated here in yellow that those are the areas where you need to apply glue. We attach our spinner to its retaining part, then this goes inside the fuselage with the engine cowling on the top. Then we glue our wing halves together, add our pilot seat into his little mounting point. We then add the tailplane. We glue and paint various elements. The paints are called out here, so we've got number 30 for the chair. We add our air intakes on the bottom. Then it does say here, paint exterior colours after this stage because it'll be easier. We can glue in our landing gear in the raised position or in the lowered position, depending on how you want to display your aircraft. But the kit does come with a display stand. So if you want to have it in a flying position, you can in this particular set. And it's always nice to see a display stand with a flying model. And just before we got to the display stand, you can see that we need to add in our pilot, our cockpit canopy. So all you need to do is push that in there and then glue that in on top and you should be good to go. And we add our propeller and you are done. And there is a little bit more information here about the paints and safety warnings and things. And some information for an adult if there is an adult overseeing a younger modeler. So good instructions. Let's look at the plastic part, and it should be exactly the same as the other Spitfire set that we've looked at previously. However, there is a slight difference because it looks as though we have newer kind of plastic from Airfix. So first up, we've got one clear part, which is our cockpit canopy. And this is crystal clear. It's molded to a very high quality, no blemishes that I can see. Perhaps a little bit greasy, so it would benefit from a wash. It's a little bit greasy because of the mold release. When this comes out of the mold, they don't want it to stick to the mold, so they spray a bit of mold release in there, or it could be in pellet form in the plastic, and it will stop it from sticking. A lot like when you bake cakes, you don't want it to stick to the tin. But that does leave grease on the outside, which will need washing off before you come to paint it. But yeah, canopy looks fantastic. Then we have 1, 2, 3 frames of grey plastic parts. So these are the darker grey plastic. This is the newer kind of plastic from Airfix. So it should hold the details really nicely, but it should also be a little bit more flexible than the plastic that we've had previously. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. So taking a look then, we've got our fuselage halves, and the details are quite nice on here as well. We have recessed panel lines throughout, and they're not as deep as previous offerings from Airfix. Plastic does feel a tiny bit greasy, so again, a wash would be required. Aerial mast wheels are nicely represented in the down or raised positions, engine cowling, radiator parts, and landing gear legs. Flip over, we have some internal detail as well, which on a starter set is still quite nice to see. So we're going to look at the next sprue, which contains our display stand, which has the Airfix logo on the wing. So this is like a shadow stand. This looks like the shadow of the plane whilst it's in flight, and the arm as well, which goes up into the bottom of the plane. We have our pilot. Generally quite a good molding of the pilot. Details are quite well represented, but from experience, if I recall, the pilot is a little bit small. He just seems slightly under scale, so he does look quite small in the seat, but it's nice to have a pilot included nonetheless. We have our spinner parts and our prop. All of this is molded to a very high quality, and there doesn't seem to be any flash or excess plastic on the moldings. Moving on then to the final sprue, we have our upper and lower wing surfaces along with the tail planes. So on these, again, we have recessed details, much like with the fuselage. Again, not so heavy as in previous offerings from Airfix. Do note that there is a massive hole here. That's because that's for the display stand. If you wanted a bit more realism and you didn't want the display stand, you'd have to fill that in, and I think there possibly was a landing light or something that was in that position originally. I do think it's possibly worth mentioning ever so slightly, just here where the sprue gates are, I have an ever so slight short shot. So that's where the plastic hasn't quite filled that bit of the mold. It's on both sides, and I do have a little bit of a short shot here where the machine gun port is on the wing. The wing should continue. It's only like a fraction of a millimeter, so it shouldn't detract from your building enjoyment, but it may require just an ever so slight bit of filler just to bring that wing edge into alignment. So the outside of the wing edge is spot on, and then that side is spot on. It's just an ever so slight a slight dip. That's called a short shot, where the plastic hasn't quite filled the mold properly. So perhaps in the factory, the molding machine wasn't working at quite the right pressure. But that is the only short shot, and it's absolutely minimal, that I have seen on this kit. So like I said, it shouldn't detract too much from your enjoyment when you come to build this. Ejector pin marks here, these are all cleverly on the insides of the parts, so they shouldn't be visible on the outside surfaces when you've come to do that. So yeah, not a bad looking kit, and it should build up into a relatively good representation of the Spitfire on the display stand, which it was a real Spitfire as well, as paid for by the people of Blackpool. So wrapping it up, we had 1, 2, 3 dark grey plastic sprues of a good quality, a little bit greasy, ever so slight short shot on the wings here, but nothing that can't be managed with a tiny little bit of filler. And if you're a beginner, you probably wouldn't even notice them. Details, on the other hand, are good, and the mold quality is pretty decent as well, with no flash on there. We had one clear part, which is crystal clear and looks absolutely fantastic. We have some cartograph transfers, which are amazing. Cartograph transfers are the best. And sometimes the cartograph transfers cost as much as the plastic that you've got in the kit. So you're paying for quality transfers with Airfix. We have a set of instructions, which if you are a beginner, then, feel free to read them in their entirety. And they should be really easy to follow because they're printed in full colour and the steps are all laid out in a very logical manner. Don't forget the information there on the front. We also had a hints and tips sheet, which is a great addition to a starter set. 4 Humbrol paints, which should be able to produce your kit to a reasonable standard, and they're all completely usable, which is great to see. 1 tube of Humbrol polycement, which you will be absolutely fine to use if this is your first time. Naturally, there are better products out there. A number 2 brush, which is possibly the bare minimum you need to complete this. I would suggest going out and getting some more brushes of different sizes and thicknesses, just so you can do a little bit more with what you've got. All of that comes contained within the standard starter set box from Airfix with the limited edition Blackpool Illuminations artwork on the front for this specific Blackpool aircraft. So as mentioned earlier, there isn't much else to go into the history of this kit because it was a 2020 tooling when it was first released as a starter set. There is a different Spitfire Mk.V out there which does the C-wing as well, but that one is more complicated, it has more parts, and it comes in different paint schemes. But how much would you be looking at paying for this one? Well, it's only available on the Blackpool Illuminations web shop, or I presume somewhere physically in Blackpool. And on their website at the moment, it is retailing for £19.99. Naturally, that is a little bit higher than the standard starter set price, as the standard starter set recommended retail price is £11.99. However, this is a limited edition, and that is potentially where the cost is a bit higher because they will have only produced a certain number of these. So if you do want one, which will make an interesting addition to the stash, being slightly different to the normal Airfix offering, then make sure to check the link down below. But yeah, I'm thinking of doing this as a build. Not quite sure how I'm going to display at the moment, but I think I'll come up with something. And let me know down in the comments what you thought of my review and if my assessment was fair. As always, a quick shout out to my channel members and patrons for the extra support they give the channel. A massive thanks to these guys on screen. To find out more about how you can join them and the perks you get as a patron or channel member, take a look at the links in the description. Alternatively, there are other ways to help support the channel. And again, full information is underneath the video. Once again, thanks to Airfix and Blackpool Illuminations for sending this review sample out for free. And before I sign off, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you never miss a modelling upload. Finally, the last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again next time.